Happy Book Day. It's a very special day today. It's the fourth Sunday in July when all the bogs and fens and swamps and marshes are celebrated to raise awareness for peatlands. I'm Naomi Wright from the Art and Energy Collective, and we've all been amazed at the role of mosses in making peatlands, particularly the special sphagnum or pom-pom mosses, without which we wouldn't have any peatlands. We've got a programme called How to Bury the Giants, the carbon giant of the climate and ecological emergencies. And this is all about the role of tiny mosses in creating peat and also what they do for to combat climate change. The Art and Energy Collective is based in the southwest, and our nearest peatlands are in Dartmoor. In Dartmoor, only 1% of its original peatland is healthy. 1%, tiny amount. They're worn away, drying up bare areas of peat, are releasing the carbon in the water and into the atmosphere. There are people starting to repair these areas by re-wetting them and encouraging that sphagnum moss to grow back with lovely, healthy, mossy carpets. And with that comes the other plants and animals that make the peatlands so rich and biodiverse. To celebrate the mosses and Bog Day, we have two things for you. We have a film looking at moss, and we have an audio book called The Mossy Story by actor and author Misha Colombo, and she's also reading it. So I'll see you after the film about mosses.
At the dawn of time, moss was the first plant to venture out of the sea and onto the barren land. Over millions of years, mosses have trapped energy and buried carbon deep beneath the surface, transforming our planet into a place where trees, birds, amphibians, mammals, all of life could thrive. They have survived on the planet for 450 million years through extreme climate changes. We have a lot to learn from them. They're stronger than they first appear. This is the story of mosses, how they bury the carbon giant and some of the other ways that their tiny actions can nurture all of life. Mosses are part of a group of plants called bryophytes. Along with tiny plants called liverworts and hornworts, there are over 1,000 species in the UK. Mosses are often overlooked and ignored, yet they are all around us. They can thrive up mountains, in woods, by the sea and on bricks. They just need a bit of dampness. Moss grows in cracks, at the edges and in shadows. Look closely and you will discover a truly wild place on your doorstep. This acrocarpus or upright moss produces spores from sporophytes and uses the rain to germinate anew. When you look closely, you will be astonished at their complexity and beauty. Then in a garden or in a park or woods, you might find these spreading pleurocarpus mosses and fern-like mosses, making multiple layers. They harbour a forest of their own with tiny little creatures like tardigrades and miniature worms called nematodes. Birds will eat these creatures and also make soft, mossy linings to their nests. From mosses, we learn that when we take small actions together, we can bring abundance back to abandoned places. Sphagnum mosses are particularly special mosses to bogs and wetlands. They have a pom-pom leafy head and they have a long strand. They can store many times their weight in water. There are about 30 species which form mounds and mosaic carpets of growth with other mosses, lichens and vascular plants. As the moss grows in the light, so the leafy plant and rhizome is pressed down below without oxygen, and slowly in this anaerobic, mushy, rotting environment, it turns it into carbon-rich peat. Sphagnum moss lays down about 1 millimetre of peat per year, so that in 10 centimetres it's the equivalent of 100 years. 1 metre is 1,000 years of climate history below your feet. Moss leaves are only 1 cell thick, so interesting projections and patterns of growth are designed to prevent drying out and insulate. They connect to the ground with rhizomes, which are fine cellular hair-like structures underneath. They're not roots. This means the whole plant is able to absorb water and other nutrients it needs. They can also more easily find resting places where other plants find it difficult, such as on rocky surfaces or on these concrete bricks. Mosses are highly significant in combating the impacts of the climate emergency. They protect from extreme weathers, slow the flow of the water and prevent flooding. They absorb air pollutants. They're the first plant to grow on land damaged by wildfires. They stabilise the soil and create an environment for microbes, bacteria and fungi, and nurture tree seeds to germinate. There's so much to learn from mosses, our climate superheroes. If only we could be more moss-like. Each tiny moss reveals skills for successful living: persistence, resilience, simplicity, adaptability and collaboration. From moss, we gain hope and we celebrate as we work together to bring a brighter, greener future.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed that. I always find it a little bit hard watching myself, but it was a great place to go, Dartmoor, to look for all those mosses and to think that they grow in the bogs, which we're celebrating today on National Bog Day, and also they grow in the pavements, between the pavements and in bricks. So yeah, small things. Did you enjoy that, Kat?
I did, Naomi. I love the bit where you're bouncing on the bog.
Yes.
Brilliant.
I wouldn't recommend it for a thing that everybody goes and does, but it's just that surface of some wetlands, you know, they're just it's a very interesting feeling being on there. And the film director said, "Go on, Naomi, you have a bounce."
It's brilliant. Brilliant scenery of Dartmoor, and just makes you slow down and really look at the mosses and the plants around you.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. What we've been doing then, we told you about how to bury the giant. That's our program of work. And within that, there's been a lot of different activities. And one of them has been working with communities and schools to try and grow some little sphagnum mosses and make little fleecy nests. And so, I don't know, to creatively restore very small areas of peat. So we're all being very moss-like in our approach, aren't we, Kat? Doing the small things, but trying to do lots of them so that together they all add up to
Absolutely.
it. And we're very grateful to our funders as well that have helped us on the way. So we've been doing that as a way of telling the story about how to bury the giant. And we've also been making this mossy carpet, which is made up of thousands and thousands of little pom-pom textile mosses, and instigated, or I suppose inspired, by the peatlands of Dartmoor. So now we have the story, which is called The Mossy Story, written by Misha Colombo, read by her as well. And it's a beautiful tale, but it's just audio. So it's a beautiful tale. You can relax and listen to it and dream with them. And they're talking about the mosses, but also the giants.
That's right, Naomi. I'm going to share that off our website where you can find it if you want to listen again, and you can download the files, and you can also get a transcript. So if you like to read something and that helps you follow the story, I'll share it from there and we'll listen too.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
A Mossy Story, written and read by Misha Colombo. A Mossy Story by Misha Colombo. Do you like daydreams? This story's about a daydreamer. Once upon a time, the time being just after lunch, in a classroom in a school perhaps like your one, a boy was staring out of the window, lost in a wonderful dream about tigers. Jay! Until he realised his teacher was standing right in front of him. Jay! Miss Edwards' face floated above him. Is everything okay? You seem miles away. Some people giggled. Sorry, Jay murmured. Try and concentrate. This is an important topic. She smiled at him and returned to the whiteboard, writing C-A-R-B-O-N with a flourish. Who has heard of carbon before? Hands went up. Does anyone know where we can find carbon? Is it in pasta carbonara? Someone suggested. Is it what orange juice comes in? Came another question. Not quite, answered Miss Edwards. My granny's got a carbon hip, someone said. Tennis rackets are made of it, and pencils, were other suggestions. Yes, those are human-made things using carbon, Miss Edwards encouraged. Anything else? Is it in petrol? Someone asked. Yes. A lot of our energy, for now, comes from carbon, Miss Edwards replied. Carbon is all around us, even inside us. If you breathe out, that's carbon. Everyone breathed out loudly like dragons. Carbon dioxide, came a shout from the back of the room. Well done, Miss Edwards said. It's also in diamonds, coal, animals, plants, soil, even the inside of stars is carbon. But, Miss Edwards paused dramatically, looking around at the children. Carbon is a giant problem. Does anyone know why? Is it pollution? That's right. Carbon starts in the ground, makes all living things, and then when they die, the carbon rots back into the ground again. It's a cycle. But us humans have got into the habit of taking carbon for fuel and other things, and that's made too much carbon spread into the air, which is making nature a bit stressed. We need to help nature get healthy again. We need to keep carbon underground where it belongs. So what can we do? People talked about solar panels, electric cars and recycling. Jay put his hand up. Stop breathing so much? Some children rolled their eyes. Miss Edwards frowned. Thank you, Jay. Any other ideas? Jay's cheeks flushed. He'd got it wrong again. His mind rescued him into an emergency daydream. He imagined a massive giant. The carbon giant was black and smudgy like coal, with pencils for fingers and tennis rackets for feet. It burped fire, crushed trees, and its eyes were two dazzling stars. The ground was hot where it trod, but in its soily footprints you could find diamonds, shining more brightly than the sun. Later, Jay was sitting on the low stone wall in his nana's garden. He loved being there. They were eating gooey chocolate cake in the sunshine. "Do you want to talk about it?" his Nana asked. "Talk about what?" Jay replied. "You have a face like a rain cloud." "Bad day at school, I guess." "Is someone bullying you?" "No." "Did an elephant squash your toes?" "No." Jay smiled a little. "Did a mouse steal your lunch?" "Nibble, nibble." She tickled him. "Nothing like that. I keep accidentally daydreaming and then I miss the questions. I feel so stupid," Jay sighed. They both looked out over the garden. "Are your dreams more fun than the lessons?" Nana asked mischievously. "Sometimes," Jay grinned. His Nana shrugged. "Then you're not stupid." Jay started to cry. Big fat tears that dripped onto the wall. He watched one big drop splash onto a patch of moss in the dark crack between the stones. He stroked it with his finger as he spoke. "I don't know what to do." "I know what you can do," his Nana replied, her eyes twinkling. "Tell me one of your dreams." Jay swiveled round to face her with a broad smile. "Okay, so, once upon a time, there was this carbon giant." The next thing Jay knew, he was sliding down, 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 fast, whizzing so loudly that everything became a blur. He looked over and saw his Nana, her eyes wide, like that time they went on a roller coaster together. Without a word, they grabbed each other's hands. "Is this your dream, JJ?" his Nana shouted over the rushing noise. He shook his head. Their hands squeezed tightly as they landed with a muffled bump on a green, springy carpet. A creature stood in front of them, short and plump, with 4 pairs of legs. It looked like a mix between a pig and a woodlouse, and it was grinning at them. "Is it really you?" it said. "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you." It started to dance. "It feels good to move, doesn't it?" Jay rubbed his eyes. His Nana's jaw hung open. "Where are we?" Jay finally managed. "Mossland," the creature replied. "In the cleft of the... Its face squeezed in concentration before suddenly shouting, "Moss, what's the name of these mountains?" From underneath their feet, a deep, slow voice rumbled, "Wall." "Yes, that's it. Wall Mountains." The creature smiled. Jay and his Nana looked at each other in shock. "Moss and I are friends," the creature continued. "We go everywhere together. Moss is wise, and she says I make her smile." "And who are you?" Jake asked. "I am Tranaki Satina Taram. We tardigrades are famous for our long names, but you can call me Tina, if you like. That's what Moss does. She prefers to keep things simple." "What did you say you were exactly?" Jay asked again. "A tardigrade. Some call us moss piglets." She stared at their blank faces. "Water bears?" Still blank faces. "We're everywhere. I prefer moss. So cosy. You can learn a lot from moss if you take the time." "Welcome," added Moss slowly. Hi there," said Jay, awkwardly waving at the ground. "So, you're tiny," Jay's Nana said, pinching 2 fingers together. "Like a speck of dust." "Only to you," Tina replied. Could it be true? By some magic had they shrunk down into the moss on his Nana's wall? Jay shook his head in case he might actually be dreaming. "Why are we here?" he asked. "A kindness needs a kindness in return," said Tina seriously. "You did me the great kindness of waking me with water. It was you, wasn't it? I feel it in my tummy, and as my grandfather used to say, a tardigrade's tummy is rarely wrong. So I've invited you to my home." "My teardrop," said Jay, suddenly realising. "I saw it soak into the moss." "Yes," replied Tina. It was exactly what I needed. I've been sleeping for weeks now, waiting to wetten up again. We need lots of water, Moss and I, otherwise we shrivel and stop. Thank you. What is your name, bringer of salty rain? Jay, and this is my Nana. Hello, Jay. Hello, my Nana. Welcome to the mossy carpet. Tina skipped in a wide circle as she sang, swirls and feathers, spirals and hair, fronds and pom-poms, you'll find them all there. Cushions and blankets and softness galore, pillows and hammocks and so much more. Stringy and bushy and squashy and green, the finest moss carpet that's ever been seen. Can we sit on it? Jay asked. Sit, lie, roll, whatever you please. Tea? I thought you'd never ask, said Nana. The tardigrade pulled from somewhere a large wooden pot with 3 spouts and 3 cups. She poured the hot green liquid into the cups, handed them out, and then sat down next to the others with a gentle oof. They sipped in silence for a while. What's this tea made of? Asked Jay's Nana. A secret blend of herbs, but mainly spit and vinegar. Jay winced. It is delicious, though, he said, like chocolate. And my Nana's cakes and mushrooms, the tardigrade added. And popcorn, his Nana joined in. I don't know the plants you speak of, said Tina, but I agree, it is rather good. I drink it 5 times a day. Why do you drink so much tea? Jay asked. Because it's delicious and full of answers, Tina replied. I never knew tardigrades existed. No offence, Jay said. Tardigrade tea is famous for its honesty, Tina nodded knowingly. What kind of giants are you two anyway, when you're full size? Space lions? Sky whales? I have a feeling I've seen you in my telescope before. We're humans, Jay replied. Moss killers! Tina recoiled a few paces. You like rakes and moss poisons, don't you? She gulped nervously and stroked the carpet. There was an awkward pause until his Nana said, Jay was in the middle of telling me a story before we came here. Oh, I love stories, Tina gasped. Can I hear it too? Does it have caves in it? I love stories with caves in them. No, said Jay. Not yet, corrected his Nana. It's about a giant. Like you. Bigger, his Nana smiled. Tina's eyes grew wide and she leaned in. Jay repeated his carbon giant story to his Nana and Tina. His Nana listened intently. Tina asked a lot of questions. She finally said, I get that the people collected diamonds from the giant's footprints. I probably would too, if they were all sparkly. But then, what did they do with them? They built a sparkling world. In fact, it became so bright they had to wear sunglasses, Jay said. Super cool, said Nana. After a while, though, the sunglasses made it hard to talk to each other. But they carried on because their world was so brilliant and shiny. Tina looked unhappy. This story's a bit sad. Where's the cave? Jay glanced at his Nana, who picked up the story. The giant used to live in a huge cave, deep underground. That's where the carbon giant felt happy. That's where it belonged. Yes, that's right, Jay carried on. The giant was roaming the world to find its way home to its underground cave, and the people were following it to gather the sparkly diamonds. The giant wanted to get home so much it began to run. The people had to chase to keep up, and everything was getting faster and faster. Just go slow, rumbled Moss beneath them. Yes, Moss, that's it. Eventually the giant grew tired. Soon its diamonds got a bit smudgy and smeary, and the light blazing from its eyes dimmed a little. The people's world wasn't as bright as it used to be. They took off their sunglasses and realised that everything was turning black. Their clothes were filthy and their eyes were watering. And still the giant ran, and still the people chased after him because they didn't know what else to do. And the giant started to pant big clouds of stinking gas. "Pooey!" shouted his Nana. Tina was sobbing. "Poor giant!" She suddenly leapt up onto all 8 legs. "Let's go!" "Where?" Jay and his Nana said together. "To find the giant's cave," Tina replied. "Us?" said Jay. "Yes," said Tina. "Now?" said Nana. "Yes," said Tina. "How?" said Jay. "Good question." Tina thought for a moment. "Let's try everywhere." "But my Nana can't walk very far." "Spores," Moss suggested. "Oh, yes! Brilliant, Moss! Great idea! Moss spores drift everywhere on the breeze. We can fly. Here, grab hold of some in your hands and then jump. But Jay's Nana was already grabbing handfuls of the springy spores and was beginning to rise. "Come on, JJ, let's go by Mossy Transport," she grinned, eyes twinkling. As they floated into the air, they could see Nana's coffee cup, a brown lake on the garden wall. Tina, holding spores in 6 legs, pulled out a mini megaphone and called back, "Jay, which way?" I don't know." "Hooray! All the best adventures begin with I don't know. Let's go!" And with that, a warm breeze carried Tina the tardigrade, Jay and his Nana off in search of the carbon giant's cave. Their journey took a long time and no time at all. They visited Tina's cousins all over the world, in hot springs, in sand dunes and on mountain tops. They talked to tardigrades in rainforests, under the sea, and deep in the ice at the South Pole. They had interesting chats, saw unforgettable sights, ate strange foods, and learnt a lot. But they didn't find the giant's cave. "One more place to try," announced Tina. They plunged into cold blackness. "I can't see a thing," said Jay. "Are we in space?" "Peat bog," the tardigrade replied from somewhere nearby. "It's where Moss came from first. I know the carbon giant used to like it here too." "Wait, what?" Jay asked in surprise. "You knew about the carbon giant before?" "Moss told me once." "Why didn't you say? So you know how the story ends?" "There are a few different versions. I want to find out what happens in your one," Tina replied quietly. They felt around in the blackness for a long time, but still couldn't find the carbon giant's cave. "This is too tricky," shouted Jay into the dark. "There's no way we can help the carbon giant to get back underground. We're only little." "Speak for yourself," said Tina. She paused for a moment and then added, "Sometimes the answers are right under your nose. It just takes a journey to get back to them. Enough adventure. Time for a rest." So, dripping, hungry, and a bit forlorn, they landed back on the mossy carpet, as quietly as a falling leaf. They looked strange. The bog mud had caked onto their skin. Sea salt had spiked their hair, and quite frankly, they smelt like rotten cabbage. "I am the carbon giant," joked his Nana, and started to stomp about. Jay and Tina joined in, stomping and roaring. "Bounce," called Moss. "Oh, yes! Moss is cleaning us, look!" shouted Tina. "Jump higher!" Moss, chuckling slowly, became a wet, green trampoline. Water sprayed up in sheets and down in sprinkles as they jumped, making rainbows in the air. "We're known as slow steppers, but sometimes I like to be fast," shouted Tina, whirling them around with all her legs. Then Nana opened her mouth and began to sing in words neither Tina nor Jay could understand. And they danced and sang until their legs felt wobbly and their hearts felt full. Then Jay did an enormous yawn. Now the end of the story, Tina said firmly. They snuggled into Moss's soft folds and sipped some more tardigrade tea. The people decided to stop following the giant, Jay's Nana began. They got their breath back and looked around. Some people started to chat, some shared food, some played games. And the giant slowed to a walk, Jay carried on. It was quieter now the people had stopped chasing. It yawned and lay down. And the people, and the tardigrades, don't forget the tardigrades, Tina chimed in. The people and the tardigrades took a huge mossy blanket and draped it over the carbon giant. Moss soothed the giant into a deep sleep. It melted down through bogs and trees, soils and seas. The carbon giant was in its underground cave, home at last. Oh, bravo! Clapped Tina, wiping tears from her cheeks. This is the best version of the story yet. Now it is time for you to go home, just like the giant. Goodbye, Jay. Goodbye, my Nana. It has been wonderful. Goodbye, Tina. Goodbye, Moss, they called back, squeezing hands and entering the wild rushing again, as the sound of Moss's slow goodbye echoed in their ears. And they were back, sitting on Nana's stone wall, as if nothing and everything had changed. The birds were tweeting, steam curled above Nana's cup of coffee, and looking down, they held soft green threads in their hands. The next day, Jay asked Miss Edwards if he could share something he had written, his first ever poem. She liked it so much he read it to the whole class. They liked it too. In fact, they painted it on the wall by the playground. Jay's Nana has started singing to Moss as she waters her garden. If you listen very carefully, you can hear Moss humming along. And if you listen even more carefully, you might catch a tardigrade calling for tea. Or even, if you're very lucky, the deep snore of a sleeping giant. And in case you don't go to Jay's school, here is his poem. Maybe you could write a song to go with it. One drop of rain won't quench a fire. One tree won't calm the weather. But tiny changes can be giant if we weave them all together. A thread can turn into a rope into a blanket. A blanket can spread out like hope and heal our home, this planet. The end. Now we're at the end of our mossy story. For the next few minutes, just relax and enjoy your own daydream. There are no rules, just see where your imagination takes you. welcome back. I hope you had a nice time. Now, why not try to write or think of a sentence describing something from your daydream? Then perhaps you could add your sentence to other people's sentences and make a big group poem together. The end. The Mossy Story by Misha Colombo has been produced as part of the Art and Energy Collective's How to Bury the Giant project. You can find out more at www.artandenergy.org.
Welcome back. That was lovely. I hope you enjoyed the story of Jay and his Nana and Tina the tardigrade and Moss as they found the giant. If you enjoyed the story and you want to share any of your daydreams or poems or pictures that you were inspired by the story, then do share them with us. We'd love to see them. We are working on a project called The Mossy Carpet, and we'd love you to join in with this too. If you've been inspired by moss, then you can create your own moss-inspired woolly pom-pom or textile piece and join in with The Mossy Carpet, which is a mass participation artwork aiming for 100 metres in length by COP30, which is in November 2025. You can find out lots about our work and our events, read about all the things we've been up to this year on our website, which is artandenergy.org. I'm going to share now a little thank you to our funders who have really supported our work on the Mossy Carpet and our work on Dartmoor and our work restoring the moor with mosses and sharing these stories with you. Thank you to them all.